No one cares about this. Full disclosure, I don't care that much about it, but the facts contained in this video have haunted me for literal years at this point. So it's important to me that they get disseminated into the world. I want to talk about Tommy Tutone. To clear up a point of confusion right off the bat, Tommy Tutone is not a man. He's a name created for marketing, like Alan Smithy or Betty Crocker. The man you think of when you think of Tommy Tutone, if you ever actually do think of Tommy Tutone, is named Tommy Heath. Tommy Heath. Here's a picture of him. I think I'm getting ahead of myself. Hang on. Tommy Tutone is a one-hit wonder band from the 80s. Technically, they had 2 charting songs, but we'll get to that. They're listed by Wikipedia as power pop, putting them in the same genre as The Who or Cheap Trick, which makes a lot more sense than other places on the internet like Amazon and Discogs listing them as new wave, like Blondie. I love new wave. So Tommy Tutone, Tommy and his Tutones are not new wave. That's actually where the name comes from. The 2 band members shortened Tommy and the Tutones down to just Tommy Tutone. At least, according to Tommy Heath's Wikipedia page, which has cited 0 sources on the topic. The temptation for this video was to write a bit about the band's biggest hit, touch on their Spotify page, and end off making some sort of generalized statement about one-hit wonder bands and how they're content to profit off one small success for the rest of their lives, and maybe extrapolate on how that impacts the art form in general. But no. The more I researched about Mr. Tutone, the further I found that the rabbit hole went. Maybe not rabbit hole. Maybe the appropriate term is more like garbage dump. There's no grand conspiracy here, it's just a collection of strange facts that I would love to share with you. So the band, Tommy Tutone, was started in 1978 by the aforementioned Tommy Heath and a man named Jim Keller. The rest of the band members rotated out pretty often, but Heath was consistently singing, which gives the band its unique sound. The 2 of them got a studio band together and recorded their self-titled debut album. Yes, they were so confident about their pseudonym band name idea that they named what very well might have been their only album release after it. The whole album is generally fine. Angels Say No is the highlight, but the whole album is okay if you just put it on in the background. Heath and Keller enjoyed a moderate amount of success, but as all artists do, they started to wonder about a follow-up. And this is where, dear viewer, it all went wrong. For me, specifically. Tommy Tutone's second self-titled album, Tommy Tutone 2, yes, that is what the album is called, I guess they're Led Zeppelin now, was released on September 23rd, 1981 to substantially more and fundamentally inconceivable success. The album hit number 20 on the US charts, thanks to its first single rocketing straight to number 1 on the US mainstream rock charts, and number 4 on the Billboard Top 100, and that song went by the all accounts very terrible name 8675309/Jenny. The bane of any Jennifer who was born after its accursed Genesis. In case you aren't familiar, the song follows a protagonist who has had issues with women in the past and finds salvation in a bathroom stall. Inscribed on the wall is a very stereotypical phrase, "For a good time call, Jenny," with the phone number 8675309 written underneath. The narrator does not ever in the text of the song actually call the number, instead opting to fantasize about what the encounter would be like. The very existence of a girl who is so eager to please that she'd scrawl her name on the wall of a men's bathroom galvanizes him and gives him hope for the future. I am not exaggerating in the least. This is actually what the song is about pretty explicitly. Which, like, can I make a pit stop real quick to mention that that's absolutely not what the song is about? This is something a jilted ex-lover does as a form of petty revenge. Logistically, if you were wanting to have sex with random men, writing your phone number on the wall of the men's bathroom is an incredibly inefficient method of advertisement at best, and an actively harmful form of self-sabotage at worst. It's not so easy to change your phone number. Put a pin in that. So she'd be stuck receiving lascivious calls from bathroom men at all hours of the day and night. This was in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s, before the invention of the cell phone, obviously, so it wasn't as easy to block a number. Jenny would be stuck with this number, her home phone number, until she moved away or got a new phone. Don't ever do this, please. I am all for graffiti and other forms of creative vandalism, but do not ruin someone's life by writing their phone number on a bathroom stall. That being said, I actually did do this one time. Not as a form of revenge. I wrote it verbatim for a good time called Jenny 8675309 on the wall of one of the bathrooms in my middle school. I did it as this funny, like, in-joke, thinking that other people would find it as funny as I did, but I failed to consider two things. Number one, this would have been roughly 30 years after the song was released, and I don't think anyone in my middle school was quite as into dad rock as I was at that point. And number two, there actually was a girl in my grade named Jenny. And you might notice that this is a real phone number, and we're going to put a pin in that thought as well. And it's not one of those, like, 555 dealies that you see in a movie. Like, this is a real phone number. So, at a glance, people were like, wow, that's Jenny's real phone number. That's fucked up. And, the operative word here is assume, because they did not actually try to call the number and, determine that it actually was Jenny's and not, a phone number from a novelty song from the 80s. But they did assume enough to send her home for the rest of the day and to call all of the boys who had class in that hallway into the gym for interrogation. I did not confess because I am not a snitch, not even to myself. They never caught the culprit, clearly. I carry no guilt about this whatsoever. That song, that damnable song, is so inescapable that no one could have misconstrued it without accidentally rubbing two of their brain cells together. This actually segues me very well into talking about the immediate effects of this song. Of course, I'm sure it was absolute hell for anyone named Jenny at that point in time. It's not so often that your name is the centerpiece of a popular song, unless your name is, Rosanna, Roxanne, Rhiannon. A lot of R names. Jolene. Anyway, to have your song be about a bathroom prostitute is not a great time, I'm sure. I'm so sorry, Jennies of the world. And while we're here, why don't we remove that pin that I talked about earlier and talk about the fact that this is a real phone number. This is a real number that people actually had, and you could dial it into your phone and call the number, and someone on the other end who's a real person would pick up the phone. There are countless anecdotes from the 40 or so years AJ, after Jenny, about people who thought they were so funny, calling the number at all hours of the night, asking for Jenny and ruining people's lives. Let me share with you a few. Laureen Burns of Alabama, who's quoted as saying,
"When we'd first get calls at 2 or 3 in the morning, my husband would answer the phone. He can't hear too well. They'd ask for Jenny, and he'd say, 'Jimmy doesn't live here anymore.' Tommy Tutone was the one who had the record. I'd like to get hold of his neck and choke him."
Nina Clemente and Jahanaz Mirza of Brown University, who were assigned the cursed phone number for their dorm room. They reported to the school paper that people would call and hang up, sing them the song, or even leave their own phone numbers in the hopes that Jenny would call back. Nina was quoted as saying, "It's the worst number to have in the world." And Spencer Potter of New Jersey, a for-hire DJ who thought that requesting the phone number would help draw attention to his business. It did, until he literally couldn't handle the volume of calls he was receiving, and arranged to sell the number to a gym. At the madness's peak, Mr. Potter was receiving upwards of 30 prank calls a day. While this series of events is completely inexcusable and has indelibly changed the face of our society for the worse, we still have more to cover. While the aftershocks of 867-5309/Jenny are the most significant thing that Tommy Tutone ever did, they somehow are not the wildest. Strap in! We're covering the rest of their discography! Heath and Keller, the band members, remember them? Right. They basked in the warm glow of radio success for a good long time. They spent nearly 2 years, as a matter of fact, coasting on their one ingratiating hit before composing their follow-up album that, I'm sure, by the law of large numbers, someone asked for. The follow-up was called National Emotion. And this is where the story of Tommy Tutone gets obscure, strange, occult, if you will. Not really. Tommy Tutone's National Emotion just so happens to be so large of a flop that no one has ever bothered to digitize it, make it available for sale or streaming digitally, which is a very uncommon occurrence in the modern day. I can count on 2 hands the number of songs I know by mainstream charting artists that are unavailable on services like iTunes and Spotify, and here comes Tommy himself with not just 1 album, but 3 entire albums, put a pin in it, which cannot be easily streamed. National Emotion was never even released in a digital format. According to Discogs, it was only released on LP and cassette. Some of the songs exist on YouTube, but it's obviously not digital. You can tell that it is a rip from the vinyl record, which is a shame because from what I've heard of the album, this is actually their most listenable one so far. The title track itself is pretty good, as well as Dumb But Pretty. It's a solid 80s sound. It's a pretty good party album. It's got energy, fun beats, if you can get past Tommy Heath's voice. Sorry, Tommy, but, you know, hey, it's fine. We all want to be Bob Dylan at some point in our lives. After the commercial failure of National Emotion, Jim Keller would leave the band gracefully. He's since gone on to be a successful New York producer, write 4 solo albums, which are available on Spotify. Good job, Jim. And work with big names like Philip Glass, Tom Waits, and Ravi Shankar. Meanwhile, Tommy Heath was chugging along, writing more music worthy of the Tutone lineage. The final 2 albums released as Tommy Tutone are essentially Tommy Heath solo albums, as far as I can tell. I've been unable to track down copies of either of them for a responsible price, which is the only way I'd be able to listen to them, as they are not even available on YouTube. The fourth album by Tommy Tutone is called Nervous Love. That's really all I have to tell you about it. The cover is blue. Also, it was eventually re-released as A Long Time Ago, which isn't even listed on the band's Wikipedia page because it is the exact same album with 4 alternate mixes of other songs tacked on after the fact. And of course, guess what song it ends with? Their 5th and final studio album is called Tutone.rtf. Yes, that is the real title of their last album. It was 1998. Everyone was still obsessed with Web 1.0. Context doesn't make it a good title, but it at least makes it an understandable title. But would you believe that Tommy Heath wasn't the only person who was interested in bringing the legacy of Tommy Tutone into the modern age? Due to Federal Communications Commission regulations, a phone number is not allowed to be bought and sold. In order to guarantee a phone number for a company, one would have to start a company specifically so they could register the phone number. And in July of 2011, that's exactly what at least one enterprising web developer did. Now, I want to stress that there is no real proof of exactly who did this, and I don't want to assume anything, but for the sake of argument, let's call him Jeffrey. Somewhere between July 2011 and January 2013, Jeffrey registered both the 855 prefix and the 888 prefix of 8675309. And with these seeds, he intended to sow a field. A field known as JennySearch.com. JennySearch was, as in it is defunct now, a wonderland of Jennydom, part social media site, part dating site, part chintzy giveaway. JennySearch.com harkened back to an era of animated GeoCities backgrounds and dancing baby gifs. However, it is important to note that the quality of the site is not the owner's fault, as can plainly be seen in the banner. Quote,
"This site would have been a fantastic time with hot girls, new music, great prizes, and social interaction. But the company hired to create the site, pilotgroup.net, completely screwed us over. Broken promises, shoddy programming, and no refund, so here we are, with a song in our heart, a plea for help on our lips, and a coming soon landing page for the public. If you happen to know a proven capable programmer / company with expandable non-capped configurable code, please click here."
Unquote. Clicking through takes you to a shockingly bare fillable form. I have not filled it out, as I am not a web developer. I wouldn't want to lie to Jeffrey just for YouTube clout. He's clearly been through enough. On JennySearch's incredibly loud landing page, you'll find several tantalizing banners, each coming more soon than the last. First and foremost, the namesake of the site, the JennySearch. From the very scarce information on the site, it would seem that the eponymous JennySearch was to be a competition to win the title of hottest girl in the USA. You'd submit your photo, the users of JennySearch would vote on who they thought was the hottest, and the weekly top 5 would be eligible for a grand prize of $5,000. Not entirely sure how this website was supposed to rake in multiple thousands of dollars every week, but it's a moot point now. It's unknown to me whether or not the JennySearch was only open to girls named Jenny, but I have to imagine it was. I can only imagine the scandal if it was leaked to the press that the winner of $5,000 in the JennySearch was actually named Rachel. Under the banner ad for the JennySearch, there's a small caption that reads, "Possible reality show," which I think is cute. It's nice to have unreachable aspirations. The second banner touts the 5309 Rocks Emerging Artist Contest, which, having almost no evidence to go off of, appears to be a Battle of the Bands styled contest, wherein you would upload a song, though the site just says, "Submit your band," and then you'd be judged in much the same way as the JennySearch. Users of the site would vote on who was the best, and of course the winner would receive $5,000. Not only that, but you'd receive the customary currency of all choosing beggars, clout, They'd give you exposure by sharing your hit song and their incredible social media. Let's just navigate on over to that Twitter account and oh no. Oh jeez. Oh no. Well, at least your song will be seen by Cafe USA. And oh, hey, Jeffrey. The final banner is a little more abstract. It promises 5309 as your, quote, interactive social portal, unquote, and invites you to plug in, like this is Mega Man Battle Network or Futurama or something.
Come on, Bender, grab a jack. I told these guys you were cool.
Well, if jacking on will make strangers think I'm cool, I'll do it.
This is where we get a slight sneak peek at what the site would have offered. Obviously, the aforementioned Jenny search and the 5309 Rocks contest homepages, but also tabs entitled Random Connection, Communicator, Games, Classifieds, and Get Gear. Somewhere within these tabs, one would have been able to meet new friends, connect with old friends, hook up with exciting people. And the site is capped off at the end with a push to follow their Twitter for exciting news and launch dates, which didn't happen, I don't think. Tommy Tutone, in reality, actually had very little to do with this website, which I think is why the actual text of it is so devoid of references. Unbothered and unfettered by the influence of social media, and completely against the wishes of at least one person creating a video essay about them, Tommy Tutone continued to release new music. And by that I mean one song. The same song. Over and over and over and over again. There are, by my count, 63 different releases of the song credited to Tommy Tutone on Spotify alone. Some of them are live recordings, some of them are re-recordings or remasters, and some of them are the god-awful Christmas version. For all intents and purposes, I think this is where the story of Tommy Tutone ends. Not with a bang, but with a whimper. But I want to impart to you a small bit of knowledge before we go. Jenny is not a real person. She never was. In several vainglorious salvos to keep the magic alive, both Heath and Keller have alleged to the press that Jenny was a friend of theirs, but the writer of the song, one Alex Call, set the record straight, saying, "Despite all the mythology to the contrary, I actually just came up with the Jenny and the telephone number and the music and all that just sitting in my backyard. There was no Jenny. I don't know where the number came from. I was just trying to write a 4-chord rock song and it just kind of came out. This is back in 1981 when I wrote it, and I had, at the time, a little squirrel-powered 4-track in this industrial yard in California, and I went up there and made a tape of it. I had the guitar lick, I had the name and the number, but I didn't know what the song was about. This buddy of mine, Jim Keller, who's the co-writer, was the lead guitar player in Tommy Tutone. He stopped by that afternoon, and he said, 'Al, it's a girl's number on a bathroom wall.' We had a good laugh. I said, 'That's exactly right, that's exactly what it is.'" So there it is, folks. The slight rise and fall of a 1 or 2 hit wonder band, chronicled and set down in history, like the reign of a king or the fall of a nation. I can only hope, one day in the future, that someone will hear those old familiar strains, and finally, for a good time call,